We have a two-way tie atop the Mega Driver 86 IndyCar Series standings right now, with Nate Siefker and Alexander Van de Sant tied atop the lead as we hit the virtual streets of Long Beach tonight for the Long Beach Grand Prix. Good evening, everyone. Mark Gillespie, along with Tony Donahue and Rish Khosla, as we hit the streets of Long Beach for a full race, 85 laps on the 1.95-mile track tonight. Tony, what can we expect to see tonight?
Yeah, I think what we've learned in the first couple of races on the ovals is you're not going to get the caution when you need to. So strategy will certainly play key tonight on whether or not you come in. Maybe you stay out when the leaders come in. So there'll be a lot of different strategies that we'll be looking for over that 85 laps, because being in the back, sometimes it's hard to make your way back up. So I think we'll see different drivers go with different strategies here this evening.
Rish?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how this race plays out. Strategy is definitely going to be something to watch out for, but definitely attrition. Remember last time we were here on the streets of Long Beach, just 3 drivers finished on the lead lap at the end of it. I think just 6 to 8 drivers running at the end of it, a number of them many laps down. So yeah, attrition is going to be one to watch out for, keeping your nose clean throughout the race. Of course, the walls are very menacing around here. One small mistake can pretty much end your night.
Alexander Van de Sant, our points leader, is on the provisional pole right now, along with David Porcelli, R.C. Enerson from the Real World IndyCar Series. Nate Siefker tied with Van de Sant atop the points standings, and Adriano Pinheiro is the provisional 5th place starter right now, followed by Chad Frankenfield as we finish up the second round of qualifying.
Yeah, apologies on the screen for those watching wanting to follow qualifying at home, as we do have about 3 minutes of it left. Something going on here with our timing and scoring graphics, so we'll have those back up and running for the race start. But as of right now, we'll keep you updated on qualifying just through our timing and scoring screen as Nate Siefker goes to the top of the timing sheets, now taking over from his championship rival, Alexander Van de Sant. Both of them in Group 2 here for qualifying, so both of them getting very similar track conditions in terms of putting down their laps. So a straight-up shootout here between the two of them, and it's just under 2.5 tenths between them.
The Real World IndyCar Series is at Texas this weekend for Sunday's XPEL 375. Tony, what do you expect to see on Sunday from the guys?
Yeah, I think you're looking at maybe a one-groove race again. It's going to be different with them going out for practice tomorrow night, having one driver per team to kind of try to rubber in that top lane, because the last couple of races with that PJ1 down at the Texas Motor Speedway, it became what I call a snake race, where it's kind of follow the leader, and there's a lot of blocking going on down the back straightaway. So can't wait to see them back on an oval, but I hope that this practice session really helps make the racing a lot better, because we've seen it so many times. There's only 8 places to pass on the back straightaway and then in that dog leg, and you got to get in a single file order going in the corners, because once you get up on that PJ1 traction, it's almost like you're on skates. So it'll be interesting to see when they take to the track. It's going to be a hot, slick racetrack all weekend. So there might be some chaos down in Texas.
That's always the case at Texas. A lot of pack racing. It gets real close, real interesting. And that PJ1 stuff ought to be banned as far as I'm concerned.
I'm with you there. But unfortunately, it seems like NASCAR is paying the bills. So hopefully this isn't the last race that we see at Texas, because it is always exciting, especially down the stretch.
Whoa, we just saw Adriano Pinheiro get sideways during his qualifying run.
Yeah, car is definitely looking tricky to handle right now, and of course, bumpy streets, that's going to make it a little bit harder to keep your nose pointed in the right direction the whole time around. But again, that just goes back to what I was saying. Attrition is going to be a major factor tonight. So for Pinheiro, I mean, you'd rather have those big, scary moments in qualifying than out in the race if you're running side by side with someone else on the track.
Tony, go ahead and finish up your thought there.
Yeah, we'll just see if we can see some good back and forth racing and some passing coming up. And yeah, to Rish's point, I mean, St. Pete and Long Beach, even Detroit, these are unforgiving tracks, right? You can't make a mistake. We see how close these drivers get to the wall, especially in qualifying when they're trimmed out, trying to get the best laps possible. One small mistake could end up ruining your day.
We're watching Jari Brubaker right now in the 88 car. He's running on the Firestone Virtual Reds on this lap. currently 15th on the timing sheet. This will be the first race of the season where we have to deal with the Firestone Reds.
Yeah, that's going to be a major part of tonight's race. Is going to be tire strategy. Of course, the drivers need to run. The rule is at least. Oh, Brubaker grabs a bit too much of the curb there, but the rule for tonight's race is the drivers need to run at least one full racing lap on each of the compounds of tires. So they are going to have to get a little bit creative with strategy, finding things out that work for them and things that might not work for them. It appears, I believe we were just getting a message from the drivers. Let's take a look. The blacks should be the preferred race tires, but of course expect those red tires to be preferred in qualifying, as we likely saw just there.
Which, if I remember correctly, was the case in the race last year.
Yeah,
that they
absolutely
relied on the blacks to hold up significantly better under full racing conditions than the reds.
So we'll see as qualifying is just finishing up here, where we're just going to let the last couple of cars cross the line. Should be Victor Del Porto, the last car out on the track, as he finished, I think, his final lap, and then we'll get rolling here pretty soon for the race itself. Just 22 cars in the field today, so a fairly small field, fairly light field. So hopefully that means guys are able to stay out of each other's ways during the race today. But we'll see if that rings true.
Before we get started, let's get a mention in for one of our sponsors, C2 Freight Resources. They offer you complete freight management services to meet your needs today and your changing needs in the future. They have thousands of qualified carriers in their database and can handle any shipping for every type of goods, perishable foods to office equipment. If you need to ship it, they can handle it with access to all the equipment you'll need, including flatbeds, double drops, vans, tankers, reefer trucks, multi-axle heavy haulers, dump trucks, and a whole lot more. Thanks to our friends at C2 Freight Resources for supporting the Elite Racing League.
So what we didn't see right at the end there was Adriano Pinheiro actually grabbing pole position from these other drivers. And with that, let's take a look at that starting grid here for this Long Beach Grand Prix.
Pinheiro on the pole, Nate Sifker on the outside, Van de Sant on the inside of row 2, David Porcelli, R.C. Enerson on the inside of row 3, and Justin Fortner on the outside. Tony?
Seemed to have lost Tony there for a second, but Chad Frankenfield and Ryan Schuld making up that fourth row then, and then Ethan Stanley and Gavin Hibbs on the fifth row, rounding out that top 10. Craig Forsyth and Atsushi Kanata making up that top 12. Apologies there.
The second 12, we have Nick DeGroot and Nicholas Sudik, Yuri Brubaker, Joseph Grijalva, Joel Harleman, Victor Del Porto, A.J. Musselman, Michael Hossack, Gil Ribeiro, and Mark Murphy rounding out the top 11 rows.
Yeah, so 22 drivers taking this start. Nice and short grid graphic then. And they're getting ready to roll here in just a few moments' time. Going to wait for all the drivers to show up on the grid. I think we're just waiting on one or two of them to load in here, and then that Porsche safety car will launch. And thankfully, we only have to do half of a pace lap here as we just roll down the back straightaway through the final couple of corners and then on to Shoreline Drive.
And we're not going to do a full green flag or full yellow flag lap before we start, right?
Nope, it'll be just this half yellow flag lap.
Okay.
Oh, looks like we should have Tony back.
Yep, I'm back. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Pinheiro leads the field down, heading for the hairpin curve. They'll head down Shoreline Drive for the green flag, and we've got a little bit of tension at the start there already coming through the hairpin. Pinheiro brings them down, and we get the green flag. We are racing at Long Beach.
So already a lot of spread out there for the guys out back. That's always an issue here at Long Beach in terms of getting these starts done. But right now the important thing is getting through turn number 1 cleanly. looked like someone went wide there, but nobody dropping position, so maybe just not being caught on the camera there. Snaking through here, the fountain section of the racetrack, and again, everybody looks like they're getting through relatively cleanly. Pinheiro leading the way. No, it was, excuse me, Pinheiro did have an issue, as everything did update. He went wide in turn number 1.
Alex Van de Sant is now your leader. R.C. Enerson, Nate Sifker, David Porcelli. Pinheiro's dropped all the way back to 20th place.
This was the start there. Pinheiro just misses his braking marker, and off he goes and has to wait that long process of backing that car up. But now he's back out on the racetrack, running, like you said, in the 19th position, and that gives the lead over to Alexander Van de Sant, who's up 2 positions from the start. How about R.C. Enerson up 3 positions from the start?
Sifker, Porcelli, and Frankenfield rounding out your top 5. Justin Fortner, Ethan Stanley, Ryan Schuld, Gavin Hibbs, and Craig Forsyth in the top 10 as we come down to complete lap number 1. We're on lap number 2 as they head down into turn 1.
Just to go back to that start, I mean, you're pushing so hard because track position early, we might not see another yellow for a while. So you're trying to pounce early, and you're trying to gain a little bit of a lead when you've got the pole, trying to get into turn 1. And sometimes you're just looking in your mirror a little bit too much. You look up, and it's a little bit too late to turn in. So we'll see if he can move his way back up to the field. But you certainly know he's going to be disappointed about that going into turn 1.
If we can ride on board with R.C. Enerson for a second, if you've noticed, he is running a different livery tonight than in past races where he's run the blue and gold of Top Gun Racing before. He's running a red, white, and blue livery tonight. And wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that Racer Magazine is reporting that there is no chance that he's going to return to Top Gun Racing for this year's race at Indianapolis or at any point in the near future.
Yeah, and it was discussed. The off-season stuff was, all right, is Top Gun going to go full time? We saw them run the Grand Prix. We saw them actually at St. Louis as well. They obviously missed the 500 last year. What I've been told, RC's camp owns the chassis and owns I believe the engine lease. So interesting to see. He's got Lucas Oil as a sponsor on the side of that car tonight. Maybe you'll look into what could happen in the future. Maybe not. I guess there's still a lot left to be seen because we're still at 32 entries for this year's Indianapolis 500.
Sorry, had to step away for just a second. Looks like that's a Lucas Oil School of Racing sponsorship. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
Which I believe his family owns. Mm-hmm. And RC is one of the driver coaches.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, it makes sense to be running that, but yeah, shame about the Top Gun Racing situation. You want to see more people able to get their hands, on chassis, on engine leases, and get into IndyCar. But unfortunately, that might have been a very short-lived team and process there. Just that one attempt for the Indy 500, and we'll see about what else happens with Top Gun Racing.
Well, compared to some of the vaporware teams we've seen in the past, at least they got a chance to run.
Absolutely.
As Enerson heads down, it leads the pack down through the. Whoa!
Man, that corner's so tricky. It's a little bit off camber if you get wide enough, and of course you got that tire wall that just sticks out. So there's a lot of tricky sections to this racetrack, a lot of off-camber corners, actually, that make it fairly difficult to get the car around. Of course, you're trying to slide all the way up against the wall. You saw there Enerson really let the tail end come out on that car as he's chasing down our leader, Alexander Van de Sant. Let the tail out there and almost made contact with the outside wall, but keeps it all in order right now. Again, looking out for potential attrition. Right now, we're technically seeing drivers all on pit road. Michael Hossack and Joseph Grijalva both in with issues themselves, and they're both back out on the racetrack, but just hit pit road. AJ Musselman as well was on pit road a couple of laps ago.
And Nick DeGroot and Gil Ribeiro were still in the pits. Van de Sant with a second lead of about a 1 second lead over R.C. Enerson.
Yeah, and RC with about almost 2 seconds here over third place Nate Sifker. So right now, different strategies, I think, working out for drivers where RC and Van de Sant kind of going for it, and they're the ones who seem to have the pace, at least for the field right now. We'll see what Sifker and Porcelli can do. And then also, of course, look out for Adriano Pinheiro, your pole sitter, right now running in P15, chasing down Victor Del Porto. He obviously made that mistake on the first lap, but a long way to go in this one. Still 80 laps here around Long Beach, as well as if a caution comes out, can easily pack everybody back up and give him another opportunity.
And Pinheiro's already made up 5 spots from falling back to 20th after that incident on the first corner.
And we'll see. You look at the top 6 that are all in those black primary tires. So those really should be kicking in right now. And this top 6 should pull away from the 7th place car, the first car on reds, which I do believe looks like it is the 91 of Ethan Stanley. So keep an eye on Stanley to see how quickly those red tires fall off here over the next 10 to 12 laps.
Yeah, would you have expected, so Ethan Stanley +2 on the start, would you have expected maybe more from those red tires right at the initial start, or you think that's a solid gain there to start the race out, kind of get through the melee of the first corner? Interesting strategy that most of the top runners, though, starting on the primaries.
Yeah, and I think on those red tires, you've got to pounce, and we don't know exactly what happened. You know, because it was a little bit of a spread out start, so he gained some spots when guys checked up in front of him. But gaining 2 is great. Now you just got to maintain pace, and we'll see how quickly he starts to fall off and then how quickly he dives for pit road to get onto those black tires.
Down in 14th, Adriano Pinheiro just sets a purple lap time, fastest lap of the race there by about 0.4 of a second over Alexander Van de Sant, so your current race leader. So yeah, that 56 car flying right now. Of course, he is also on the alternate tires, so that's kind of that pace advantage that we'd expect to see at this point in the race. The question is, how quickly is he burning through those? Falling back that deep into the race, this is kind of the worst case scenario for Pinheiro in terms of you kind of want to get that that alternate strategy out of the way, as he's now chasing down Victor Del Porto, who's on the button push to pass.
As they head down Shoreline Drive, let's see if he makes that move heading down into 1.
Not quite able to.
He's not going to quite get there.
So that's the use of push to pass in a defensive manner there for Del Porto in that blue car on your screen. We're running the old-fashioned form of push to pass around here, or at least that's how it's shown to us, and that's 10 uses of the button, I believe 10 for 10 seconds each. That's going to give you a little boost in horsepower on your car, but of course it also uses more fuel. So pros and cons to doing so, and you got to spread yours out strategically throughout the race. So just almost 10% of the way through the race distance, Victor Del Porto using it for the first time. Only a couple of other drivers have been on the button so far. Just seeing now David Porcelli on the button right now as he's chasing down Nate Sifker down the front straightaway.
You know, and how many times in the real IndyCar race and on these as well do you see guys charging late that have more push to pass, and it almost feels like that guy in front who's used all of his pushes to pass is a sitting duck. So we'll see if there's a late race restart, who has push to pass left, because that certainly can become a factor.
Porcelli's moved up into 3rd.
Meanwhile, the battle for the lead is not really a battle right now. Van de Sant continues to extend over RC Enerson, about 0.4 of a second faster on that last lap, actually, by Van de Sant. So he's maybe kind of figuring out his tires a little bit better, at least at this stage of the race here. So Van de Sant right now almost 3 seconds up on RC Enerson, but RC also 4.5 seconds up on 3rd place Porcelli. We'll see if he's able to move forward now that he's gotten past Nate Sifker, but yeah, I mean, that's a big gap between the top 2 drivers and the rest of the field.
Looks like that gap back to Ethan Stanley right now is at about 8 seconds, but continues to grow. Obviously, that could be certainly where you are, but I'm sorry, up to 10 seconds now. His gap to the leader, and he has he's got Nathan Sudik right behind him as well, putting on some pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what you're trying to work out right now, and putting on this pressure. Just again, it's how much do you push this early on in the race, right? You can force someone into a mistake, and on this alternate tire, it's not the preferred race tire, but it does still give you some extra grip here at the start of the run, so you want to utilize that to your best of your ability, because my guess is these guys who are on the alternates right now, they're going to run primaries for the rest of this race.
Trying to remember offhand from last year what the pit windows were. I believe about 20 to 25 laps in, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's spot on from what we were hearing. So fuel run, expect the fuel to go 24, 25 laps here. So maybe some fuel save can be done, but for the most part, I think, yeah, expect within the next 15 laps or so, just about halfway through the run right now. That's when we'd expect pit stops to start, and you can kind of play around with that. I'm sure. I don't know if the alternates will allow these guys to go all the way through on a full fuel run, or if you'd want to get off them sooner rather than waiting all the way until you kind of empty that tank and then go out again.
And staying out on those blacks as long as you possibly can is something I think we'll see. So I would expect, as we just talked about, for Ethan Stanley to be the first guy to come in maybe 2 or 3 laps earlier and then try to get out there and put down some qualifying laps to make up that gap. But so far, he hasn't really dropped off as much as we thought that he would here through the first 11 laps.
Yeah, right now lap time's very similar to the guys right around him. So you look just in front of him, Justin Fortner, Chad Frankenfield, very similar as, Alexander Van de Sant spun around in turn number 1. He's lost it and lost the lead.
This is a very dangerous part of the track, too, because you're trying to get it back rolling and not lose a lot of spots. You can become really impatient, get going. Let's see what happens here as he heads, looks like, into turn number 1.
Just loses the rear end there.
Just lost it, yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too much rear brake bias there as he was on the brakes, saw that rear end snap, and there, I mean, that's such a really cumbersome place to get the car around here because you're trying not to get into the racing line because it's a blind corner, and all these positions lost there for Alexander Van de Sant. He drops down now to P6. So your dominant race leader. Oh.
Can we look at that from his in-car?
Absolutely.
See if we can figure out what he did.
I thought he was just picking up his to-go order at Hooters there.
Here we go, Alexander Van de Sant then.
He needs an extra turn of wing.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was
just like the back end stepped out on him.
Yeah, it was early on in the braking zone. It kind of felt, and then it was as the weight was transferring, you kind of noticed that it snapped around there. So, yeah, man, you hate to see that, especially from someone under very low pressure, I guess, at that particular moment. So hate to see that for Van de Sant. So his work's cut out for him right now. 12 seconds now to R.C. Anderson, who's now kind of the unquestioned leader of this race. But we'll see now Van de Sant what he can do to recover if those tires are still in okay condition. Looks like he stayed out on the racetrack for another lap. So he's right now happy to play it out on those primaries. And yeah.
Well, the fortunate part is he's got a lot of time to make up. And if he could get a yellow or two, he's got plenty of time to do it. We're only, 12 laps into this thing. So you just got to be patient, find your car again, make some adjustments, and know you're not going to get all those positions lost back right away, but know that you have a fast enough car that you can get back up front.
We should note Adriano Pinheiro is now back up to 11th spot. He's already made up 9 spots from that first lap incident, running currently in 11th, chasing down Atsushi Kanada for 10th place right now.
Yeah, riding on board here for a lap around this racetrack with Chad Frankenfield running in the 3rd position now after the Van de Sant spin, and just giving you guys an idea as to how claustrophobic this track really is. I mean, it's so tight in those early sections, and then all of a sudden it just opens all the way up in this area, and you have so much room on the racetrack to work with, and you kind of want to use all of it as much as you can, but you really don't need to go all the way out wide there for the fastest lap time around here. But here you want to set yourself as best up as possible for this back straightaway, and then all of a sudden it's going to start getting really tight again. So 2 very different types or very different parts of the racetrack here and very different widths. You need to get used to that, where you can let the car run out wide on some of those corners, and then around here, you really have to be inch perfect with how you place your race car.
Let's ride down Shoreline Drive with Chad.
A little bit of banking there in Shoreline Drive that kind of propels you forward and back around for another lap here at Long Beach. This battle for third here is starting to heat up just a little bit. It's Frankenfield right now leading Fortner, and then you've got Ethan Stanley, who's on those alternate tires, and right now is still the fastest guy, or excuse me, yeah, is still the fastest guy in this group of cars. Alexander Van de Sant, your former race leader, just behind them as well. So 4-car scrap going on here for the final podium position, at least right now in this race. Tight through that final corner, and yeah, I mean, these guys keep getting closer and closer. Look at Van de Sant on the back of Ethan Stanley there, just getting a little bit loose off of the final corner, but we'll see how they set themselves up. None of them on the button or on the push to pass here, so none of them feel comfortable setting something up here, or maybe worried that the guy in front will just retaliate and use that same push to pass as a defensive move. Right now, Frankenfield and Van de Sant, the two drivers in this group to have used push to pass, Fortner and Stanley have the ability to, or have one extra usage than the other two in this group.
And you look at some of the guys in the top 10 right now that have been able to move up. Everybody pretty much, obviously on the initial start when the pole sitter goes off and losing some spots, everybody's going to gain some. But everybody there in the first 5 spots have all moved up since the start. So that tells us that we know that we've got some fast cars that are sitting back there, like Van de Sant, like Seth Kerr, and then as we know, Pinheiro, who qualified on the pole, who's made his way almost right back into the top 10 there.
He's now gotten around Kanata, and he is running in 10th position. Craig Forsyth is his next target, and he's about 3 seconds behind Forsyth.
Meanwhile, here's Van de Sant now on the button, and so here's what it looks like when you've got that little bit of horsepower boost and a little bit of draft help. He's going to go to the inside in turn number 1 on Ethan Stanley. He's going to get the move, 5th place, back to Alexander Van de Sant.
Stanley almost clipped the wall there coming through that little complex.
Yeah, this might be the part of the race now where Stanley's car starts to fall off a little bit more compared to those primary running cars. 16 laps into this run here, he's still putting in some competitive lap times, but already you can see as Van de Sant's gone by, he's dropped off just a little bit from the rest of this group now.
We should be entering that fuel window here over the next 3 or 4 laps. And when you're stacked up like the battle we're seeing right here, you've got to be careful getting onto that pit road. Oh, somebody got loose there in the back. Luckily, they saved it. But coming off into that pit road, we could see some chaos. And we have
That's our car stopped.
Yeah, it's our championship leader, Nate Sefker. Or at least was tied for the championship lead there. So big damage to that car. We'll see if we can grab the Whiskey Cast replay of what happened and take a look. Just damage right there to the car. So it looks like he might have tapped the wall and then hard hit into the outside wall there. And a day over, I think, for the driver of that number 45. Wow. Big championship implications.
We are still green.
I don't know if we maybe missed it there, but it looked like there was already damage to that wing, which tells me he might have got into the back of somebody else just based on where that damage was before he made that second contact with the wall. So we might see damage to somebody's back rear of the car as well. maybe somebody he was battling with, but certainly a tough way to go out when you're battling for the points championship.
Good call. Can we go back on his onboard and see if we can see what happened?
Yeah, definitely. Let's take a look and see what we can find here. I'll actually head over and take a look. See if we can figure out where that first piece of the front wing came off. Oh, and I don't think it was contact with another car. I think it was just going to be contact with the wall here. So here again, Nate Sefker, just a little bit wide. Yeah, just runs it a little bit wide there into the wall. And that actually does front suspension damage too. So that explains why he went flying into that wall as well in the following corner.
Looked like the back end just stepped out on him. Obviously, less fuel than what was in the car during qualifying in these first 15 or 16 laps. So it's a little bit more lighter. You got to make some adjustments to adjust to the weight of the car, and it looks like he just stepped out on him. He made initial contact with the back rear, and then that's what knocked him into the wall. So a very tough break there for our championship leader.
Here we go. So Van de Sant aggressive right now in this race on the button again. He's already used it 3 times on the button here, and Fortner right in front of him using it to defend. But let's see, Van de Sant with the run down into turn number 1. Can he get to the apex before Fortner? He can, and Van de Sant back up into the 4th position.
Ethan Stanley has dropped back another spot now behind Nicholas Sudik, now running in 7th spot. Those reds are starting to fall off a bit, I think.
Definitely, yeah. He's dropped a lot of time to the guys in front of him. We're looking at about 8 seconds to Fortner, who just passed him a couple laps ago. So it could have been an issue for Ethan Stanley earlier in the race, and I'm actually seeing something that might have popped up here for Stanley. Let's take a look at the Whiskey Cast replay here.
That's Stanley heading down into turn 1.
Just lost it. Didn't quite have the car slow down. You'd rather do that, though, than have a situation where you don't, you know the car's not going to make it and then go straight into that tire barrier. So smart of him to bail out of that corner, just spin it around and get back going. Obviously lost a lot of time and a position or two, but you're better off doing that than ending your day in the wall.
Same mistake that Adriano Pinheiro made at the beginning.
Absolutely. Van de Sant making quick work of Chad Frankenfield now. So Van de Sant back up into 3rd position, but has a lot of work to do now in terms of just track position to get back up to where he was before. That car is very fast. That number 97, your defending series champion and current points leader. He's got about 8 seconds to get to David Porcelli and about a further 5 seconds beyond Porcelli. So 13 seconds to RC Enerson in the lead.
Pinheiro up to 8 now.
Yeah, Pinheiro definitely a car worth following here. He's now approaching Ethan Stanley on those alternate tires as well. Pinheiro, though, right now at the pace about a second a lap faster than Ethan Stanley on that last lap, and so he continues to close that gap. Expect Pinheiro, this 56 car, to look really strong. There's a car up on the high side there. That's a lapped car, I believe. I'm not too sure who that was, but they do get out of the way at least. Ooh, we've got that's Nick DeGroot there with a little bit of an issue in a different position on the track. It looks like it was Joseph Grijalva who was actually the guy who was just in the way there, but Pinheiro, again, no major harm there to his car, but wasn't able to set up for a move then on Ethan Stanley, so he's going to have to wait another lap here, I think, before he can set himself up, most likely down Shoreline Drive.
Before we get to our first round of pit stops, let's get a mention in for our friends at Powerhouse Recycling, striving to offer the highest level of customer service in the industry for each load processed time and time again. They have attainable account representatives, prompt and on-time pickups, and customized recycling services that keep Powerhouse Recycling as North Carolina's market leader in customer service. They believe in quality customer service before, during, and after they process your materials. And they strongly believe that through superior customer service, customized recycling, and complete transparency, they can earn their clients' business and hold your longevity in your business relationships. That's Powerhouse Recycling. We thank them for their support of the Elite Racing League.
Watching the battle right now for fourth position, Chad Frankenfield, Justin Fortner, about half a second. And these guys have been close together all race long so far. Look as well for one of them to maybe dive down pit road early on to try and gain an advantage over the other. Fortner close to Frankenfield here, heading into the final couple of corners. We'll see, though, if that's going to be close enough to make a move. I don't think so. He's not on the button either, so doesn't think he's close enough either. Let's see what he can do, at least with the support of the draft. Maybe get a feel for the pace that he can gain just from the slipstream behind the 15 car in front of him. But it's not enough there that time. He might need push to pass to make that move work, or right now he's just holding out and waiting for pit strategy to maybe work for him.
Yeah, and I think you're really just setting yourself up for later. You know, if the guy in front of you makes a mistake because you're right behind him, he makes a mistake. But you're kind of just setting yourself up to know, okay, it's going to take me a lap to set up a pass late in the race. Or, all right, I can get enough of the slipstream down the straightaway where maybe I don't need to use that boost, that push the pass, and I can use it elsewhere. You certainly don't want to burn them up here with just only 23 laps complete.
We're watching the closest battle out on the racetrack right now. So far, none of our leaders have come down pit road. Remember, we were told to expect a fuel run of about 24 to 25 laps here, so we should be seeing pit stops here relatively soon. But yeah, nothing quite yet.
And as we talked about in the offset, you know, before the race, there hasn't been a yellow. You kind of expect maybe to be a yellow or two on a street course like this, but we haven't seen that yet to bunch the field for a restart. So we'll be interesting to see if that happens later on in the race. But obviously clean and green so far. We've had a couple instances, couple contacts with the wall, but nothing to bring out that full course yellow. So once one guy dives down pit road in that top 10, I think everybody else will do so as well, because you don't want to get caught out.
Frankenfield's on the button.
Yeah, so defending from Fortner. He felt Fortner had a good enough run there, even though that 12 car wasn't using his push to pass. And that now, does that give the 12 car a little bit of an advantage over Chad Frankenfield? He now has one extra push to pass, as here they come off of the final corner. He might have the run. He does get on the button, but then just loses it. Yeah, he just lost it just off the corner with that extra power boost. We'll see, though, it's still in effect down through the first corner. And maybe he can get to the inside in turn one. He's going to try.
Can he make it? No, he gets up on the curb.
Yeah, not quite.
Frankenfield holds on.
Good defense from Frankenfield there as we run lap 25 now. So it looks like these guys might be just trying to get these cars to the end of the fuel run here, which would either be lap 25 or 26 here. We do have Kanata, though, on pit road, so pitting in from inside the top 10. We'll see what that strategy change is then.
Following Enerson, let's see if he makes a move to come down to pit lane. He's
He
coming
does.
in.
Yep.
Our leader's in the pits.
Yeah, I think now expect just about everybody else in the field to come down. There comes Porcelli.
Here comes Porcelli. 3 for 3.
Ooh,
no. Van de Sant's going to stay out and hold on to the lead.
Alrighty. Frankenfield stays out as well, as does Fortner. So a little bit of extra fuel saved. We'll see how that changes things over the course of the race. So Enerson and Porcelli, their top two drivers, will drop back. Sudik also stays out. So does Pinheiro. Stanley's going to come down pit road. That one makes sense there for a driver on the alternates. And R.C. Anderson, David Porcelli, both coming off of pit road out of their pit boxes on those alternate tires. So they're trying to get that stint out of the way here early. They've got the gaps that they need. They think this is the right move. This is the right time to put on those less preferred tires and get that run done and then have your ideal primaries for the rest of this race.
But if you look at the gap that Van de Sant and Frankenfield and Fortner have opened up, that's going to put them almost half a lap ahead by the time that those guys get up to speed coming out of the pits now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how everybody kind of comes out of pit road here and how everybody switches around. Let's see, Van de Sant goes for another lap. Wow, so a lot of fuel saved there somehow on that 97 car. 26 laps completed. We were told to expect not much more than 25 laps. We have a couple of drivers who completed.
Fortner.
Yeah, both of them completed 26 laps. Van de Sant thinks he can grab 27, maybe 28 laps on that. So does Nicholas Sudik. And Pinheiro.
Pinheiro's going to be a challenge because he's had to burn a lot of fuel running back up to get back up into position.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised about the Van de Sant thing. He's used the push to pass 3 times already and has somehow not used that much fuel. So impressive by the 97 car there.
Let's stop short of calling it impressive until he makes it to the pits.
That's fair enough there. I would assume Van de Sant's done an okay enough job there at calculating fuel usage, but we'll take a look there. Doesn't seem to be even lifting at all. I mean, his lap prior was a 109.46. That's as good as fresh tires would give you, and he's going for another one. Wow.
He's opened up a 16-second lead on Nicholas Sudik.
And assuming that he goes 29 laps on this run, that puts you right at a 3-stopper, and you'd probably run out on about lap 86, which would be the cool-down lap. So maybe just trying to stretch it as much as he can in this first stint. I don't know if you'll be able to do that in the next couple of stints because the field will be strung out and you won't be behind guys to save some fuel, but interesting the strategy plays coming out here early.
Yeah, could Van de Sant be making one less stop than everybody else? That would be something else, wouldn't it? As could Sudik and Pinheiro be on that same strategy now? Pinheiro especially trying to get that track position back. He knows he has a quick car. That becomes a little bit easier to do if you have that that inherent pace underneath you to back it off and still be able to run competitive lap times is a very nice luxury to have. And I think that's what you're seeing from Van de Sant and Pinheiro, who were your top 2 drivers in qualifying. And again, another lap for Van de Sant. He's going to make it to lap number 29. Which again, like Tony said, should set him up for a 2-stop race, which would be a very impressive feat there for those guys who pitted around lap 25. You're likely going to need to do, you are absolutely going to have to do a 3-stop race unless you can really stretch out one of those stints. I think, Van de Sant, unless he goes multiple more laps here, I think this might be the extent of what's possible on a tank of fuel. Those guys who pitted earlier, they're definitely on that 3-stopper. So here you go, completely different strategies. And let me tell you, if you're watching this, it's not like Van de Sant's had to really lose a lot of time here by staying out. He's running the fastest laps out on the racetrack as he finally comes down pit road.
Now, this is going to make him, if he's going to run a 3-stop strategy, though, this is going to force him to run a full stint on the red tires, no matter how much they fall off.
Yeah, that's going to be the tricky one. So we'll see if he decides to do this middle stint as the alternates or try and just go as deep as possible on the primaries and then just finish off the race with as much as possible on the alternates. Okay, I thought he was not in his pit box there. Those lines threw me off for a second as we don't have in Long Beach all of the pit stalls clearly visible. So I thought he missed his box there. But Van de Sant on the alternates this time by, so he does make that call. Middle of the race is going to be alternates. Run as long as you feel comfortable on them, and then he knows he can get at least 29 laps on those primaries for his final stint.
And that moves Pinheiro back to the lead. So the two guys that have stretched this the most are the two guys that had incidents and lost track position by sliding off.
And Pinheiro is not pitted yet either, right? He's the last driver that hasn't pitted.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So Pinheiro right now, I mean, last time around was running a 110.3, so a little bit on the slower side of lap times. But remember, he's also on the alternate tires, so he's really stretching out this alternate stint here. Curious as to why he's doing that, but he might just be looking at that fuel number and saying, hey, man, I've got more fuel. I'm just going to keep this car out here. Finally comes down pit road. That's 30 laps on a tank of fuel there for Adriano Pinheiro.
But now he can run the rest of the race on the regular Firestone Blacks.
Absolutely. So R.C. Anderson does take back over the lead, and back through goes David Porcelli as well. So those guys will be back in the lead here. But for Van de Sant to be in P3 right now and have to do one less stop than those guys in front of him, 11 seconds as well behind R.C. Anderson. So he's closed the gap to Anderson, and he has one less stop planned. That's about 30 seconds, 40 seconds difference there on the racetrack. This could be an absolute game changer here. An incredible masterclass of a strategy by Alexander Van de Sant.
If he can beat the pro driver at his own game on thinking the strategy on this, that would be a good thing for Alexander Van der Sant. He already doesn't have to worry about Nate Siefker in the championship race right now, because Siefker is running in 20th position after having that wreck earlier.
Yeah, for Van de Sant, I mean, this season, last season, of course, was kind of a coming out party there of defeating Henry Bennett over the course of a season. That's a huge accomplishment when you consider what Henry Bennett did in this IndyCar series. And now this season comes in and has that competition early on from Nate Siefker. Of course, it's only round 3, but this would be an absolute statement win right here. You know, could we be looking at the next Henry Bennett, the next back-to-back champion in this league? Very early days in the championship, but right now Alexander Van de Sant is looking like that level.
So far, the biggest mover up to 9th right now, so up 9 spots, is Victor Del Porto, a guy that we've seen run consistently fast to start the season as well. R.C. Anderson with the comfortable lead right now, but a guy that maybe could be around there towards the end and find himself inside of the top 5 is always Del Porto.
Absolutely. Del Porto, a very complete racing driver in terms of very good on fuel strategy. Surprising that he actually was one of the earlier guys to come in. He's actually very good at saving fuel, one of the best that we have here in the Mega Driver 86 IndyCar Series, but came in early on fuel, we'll kind of see how his race plays out. Might not be feeling as confident as he is on the oval sometimes, but I think those are where he's really able to shine and really show off his abilities of fuel saving and being able to run still competitive laps while also saving quite a bit of fuel. So pretty spread out here on the racetrack. Closest battle on the track right now is going to be Sudik chasing down Ethan Stanley. Here as we check out the nose cam of Sudik, you see just how close you get to the road. And I love this camera. They have this in real-life IndyCar and having this in iRacing too as well. It just, you're right down up against the ground watching the undulation. You really get a better appreciation for, despite the fact that this is a relatively flat track, there's still certain sections where you do see some elevation, such as just there, and you know how blind some of these corners are heading in. You really don't know what's coming until you're there.
You also get changes in the pavement, too, between asphalt and concrete.
Absolutely. Ooh, lockup there from Ethan Stanley. That could set up this 21 car. Doesn't get the launch off the corner though, and he's gonna save that push to pass for another day. But yeah, Nicholas Sudik right now looking to chase down Ethan Stanley. Both of them on the primary tires for this particular run.
Yeah, I remember this. I believe this camera came into IndyCar in the early '90s. I think on Bobby Rahaal's car was one of the first, and it really gives you a sense of not only how fast they're going, but how bumpy that these street courses can be. And when you talk to drivers, whether it's in this series or an IndyCar, it's a little bit different every time you go to these street courses, because where there was a bump last year maybe paved over, or where there wasn't a bump last year, there might be one or two now, especially in Detroit where they have such bad winters. So this really gives you a good sense of, one, how fast they're going, and two, how bumpy this course can get.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember hearing from IndyCar drivers who've come over from Formula One, where a Formula One street course, I mean, those are repaved to be in pristine condition for the Formula One cars to race there. I mean, Indy cars, they just shut down the streets for a weekend basically and use whatever's there. It is a very different type of of street course racing, which is again so unique to the IndyCar series, and I think very unique as well to, I think, American racing series with these proper street courses. There's no special there's nothing special put on the surfaces here. There's nothing like this. These are the roads that actual cars are driving on Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday and Thursday they get everybody to set up all the barriers, and we've got a race over the weekend.
And that's how it was in Nashville last year when we went down there. I took my uncle, who's didn't really know much about racing, but he's like, well, I want to see them race over the bridge that I drive to work on every day. So, and they get them up and down quickly. I walked around St. Pete 2 weeks ago after the St. Pete Grand Prix on a Monday, and everything was almost already torn down, and they were opening up the street back up the next day. So it's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, and I think for the rest of sport, what's been impressive, I think you should certainly be able to credit a series like Formula E that was one of the first to really put their entire series on street courses, because I think that is really how you get to the fans. So many racetracks, because of noise restrictions and other, obviously space restrictions, they're out completely in the middle of nowhere. I remember once traveling to a racetrack, they say it's in a certain city, and you actually end up on a bus or on a train for about an hour and a half or 2 hours just to get to the racetrack. So, to have it right there, and I mean, Long Beach, of course, is an excellent example, but right there in Southern California, where everything is happening, to have a race and have these cars going around here, it gets a different section of fans involved in motorsport, and every fan that you can bring into motorsport is important. As a car into the wall there has to get out, and they fly back to the pits. I believe that was Gavin Hibbs in the 95 car. He wasn't having a great night either way, but he's down in 18th, and he looks like his day's over.
And RC still with the comfortable lead. We really haven't talked much about him. We talked about him earlier in the race, but just a smooth, consistent run so far, continuing to lay down some good lap times and build that lead up. His best lap of 1:08.94, which is faster than a lot of guys that are out there. So quietly consistent laps being put down by our leader as we itch a little bit closer here to the halfway point.
Yeah, the problem for RC is he's putting in good lap times there, especially relative to second place David Porcelli, who's on pit road very soon. What happened to this the 93 car who was running in second place? Did he run into issues? I don't see anything on our timing and scoring here. Take a look at that 93 car. That's a very early stop to be coming in for. Unless he's already that committed to the three-stop strategy, and he's just trying to get those alternate tires off. He does switch to the primaries. Is this a scheduled stop for David Porcelli? That was an extraordinarily short run on those alternate tires. Just about 12 laps or so.
Yeah, and he's going to have to, as you just mentioned, come in again we saw 30 like the extreme most, right, that you can run on a stint. So let's say 27 for sure. I mean, you're still looking at having to go another 20 laps after that. So I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe it is part of the 3-stop strategy, but like you said, that is very early on, and I just don't think that those red tires, based on what we saw in that first stint, would have fallen off that much.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a fall off situation. Yeah, I don't know if it's just a tire fall off situation or if it's purely just he didn't like the balance of the car on that. Oh, as we have a car in the wall there again, that's Ethan Stanley. Ethan Stanley, who was running up inside the top 6, was running that slightly alternate strategy into the wall there, slow on the top side of the racetrack. Looks like he's going to find a place to pull it over, and it's day over for the 91 car there. Unfortunate to see there. He was well inside the top 10.
Yeah, certainly unfortunate circumstances there. And you talked about it, Rich, the war of attrition, right? Staying clean, not making mistakes. We've seen guys that were leading this race early on make mistakes. And now as you get later in the day, you're a little bit more fatigued inside of that cockpit, and you're a little bit more likely to make a mistake than maybe early on in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And do just want to let everybody know at home, unfortunately, Mark Gillespie is going to be taking off for the night. They're still recovering from a concussion late last year and wasn't feeling too great. Love the fact that he's trying to get back in the booth as much as possible. We love having him, but unable to finish out this race with us. So it's Tony and myself bringing you guys the action to the end of this one and into the second half of this Long Beach Grand Prix. But thanks so much for joining us, Mark, and keep feeling better, keep getting better, man. Can't wait to have you back in the booth for full-time races. Watching the battle on screen right now between Justin Fortner and Adriano Pinheiro. Pinheiro, the pole sitter of this race earlier on. Both of them on the primary strategy, both on the primary tires, and running similar lap times that last time around. Pinheiro, though, remember, has about 4-lap fresher tires, but also that means 4 laps more of fuel on board his car, so probably balances out just a little bit there. The question I'm looking at right now is R.C. Anderson versus Alexander Van de Sant. That is, man, it is tough to figure out exactly what's going on with R.C. Anderson because Van de Sant is rapidly closing that gap to Anderson. So unless Anderson is planning right now to run that same strategy as Van de Sant, that 75 car for R.C. is going to be long gone if he has to run an extra stop versus Van de Sant.
Yeah, Pinheiro back into the top 5 here. Chad Frankenfield has moved himself into a podium spot right now, currently 3rd. So we've got a lot of guys. Del Porto now in 8th. He's up 10 spots. There's a lot of fast cars in this top 10. Anything can happen here as we approach the halfway mark in about 2 laps.
Watching then what Alexander Van de Sant can do. That last time around, about 0.7 of a second faster than R.C. Anderson, your current race leader here. The question right now is, can R.C. stretch out this particular stint and move to a 3-stop or 2-stopper? As we just saw a car though, that's Mark Murphy there, out on the track or slow on pit road. I thought we saw a car maybe slide into the wall. Not sure who that was. That might have been A.J. Musselman, who's back up and running there, back on the push to pass, but he was the one who I just most recently saw as stationary out on the racetrack.
As we get to the halfway point here in this one, and Rich, so far, I mean, it's been all R.C. Anderson after the couple mistakes that we saw from the leaders early in this race. And Van der Sant still right there in 2nd. You got Chad Frankenfield 3rd, Justin Fortner currently 4th, and then Pinheiro trying to get back up, started from the pole, trying to get back up to leading where he was when he spun that thing out. So don't count him out just yet.
No, not at all. All that top 5, top 6, all of those guys extremely capable. All of them have been inside kind of that top 5 that or top 3 area all race long. So Again, long way to go in this race. Pace is going to play a big factor, but also the attrition is still going to be a major factor here. Just 11 cars right now on the lead lap still from race leader R.C. Enerson. Jari Brubaker in the 88, the last car currently on the lead lap. In terms of running cars, only a few more than that. I think we have about 17 running cars on track right now, so already 5 DNFs. So yeah, that's really going to affect the way the race plays out. If we continue to have that same rate of attrition, could have maybe 15 to 12 cars running at the end of this, and it could be one of those leaders who gets taken out.
And Rich, if people are just joining us here halfway through this one, talk about the big points implication that we saw here really early on in this Long Beach Grand Prix.
Absolutely. The points situation heading into Long Beach, this is what they look like. It was Nate Sefker and Alexander Van de Sande tied up top. Victor Del Porto, Eric Troiano, both tied for third position. And then a pretty close battle beyond then. Adriana Pinheiro in sixth position, Nick DeGroot in fifth. AJ Musselman there close as well. All points fairly close out on the track right now. However, Nate Sefker, who was tied with Van de Sande for that race lead, is out of this race. He hit the wall coming just into this corner on screen right now that Chad Frankenfield's heading into. Hit that outside wall right there, damaged his left front suspension, and then ended his day right there. So Sefker losing out majorly on points, while Van de Sande right now is a serious threat to win this race. That could seriously extend Van de Sande's lead in the championship, the defending champion, looking to add a second to his resume.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see how Van de Sande plays this. If he's got a chance to go for the win, he's obviously going to go for the win, but how hard do you push it knowing that the guy that you're battling with, who's currently second in points, is out of the race? Obviously, you're going to go for the win, but maybe you don't force the issue like you would if you were a little bit down on the points, because you kind of got to look at the big picture here too, and it seems like R.C. Enerson is the class of the field so far here through the first 46 laps.
Yeah, it definitely does. It all depends, I think, if you're Van de Sande right now on what R.C. Enerson, when he pits for his next pit stop. If it happens on lap 50, so in about 5 laps time, you know he's running that 3-stop strategy, so you can then kind of sit back, turn your engine down, and cruise the rest of the way in this race. If you see R.C. continues to stretch it out and is somehow able to make it to lap 28 or 48 or 50, I think 50 would be way extreme, but if you can get to maybe even 55, that suddenly opens your eyes and you start saying, okay, man, I see you, R.C. Enerson. I see you trying now to switch over to my strategy here, trying to make it on just one more stop in this race. That's going to matter a lot here, because Alexander Van de Sande, I think, with everything being equal, is the faster driver around here. He has the faster, RC has the better fastest lap of the race, but Alexander has just been faster, I think, in terms of more consistent over the course of a run. He's continued to close that gap down. Remember, when he initially spun, it was about 13 seconds. It's currently sitting at about 7 seconds. So, yeah, for Van de Sande, you can keep pushing right now, but as soon as that 75 car comes in, depending on when it comes in, I think if you get to lap 50 and you see he's stayed out, that's when you start to say, all right, I actually need to, on my own, close that 7-second gap. Pit strategy is not going to do it for me.
And I think that window for these guys to come back down pit road is going to open the next time by, I would say, right around lap 47. We've seen guys that, RC came in on lap 25. We saw Van der Sande come in on lap 29. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Pinheiro that stretched it 30 to lap 30, if not mistaken. So that window about to open up for that second pit stop of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys who pitted lap 25, you're just about there. We're about 5 laps or so away from that that pit stop. But that's the 3-stop strategy right there. If that's how you want to run it, could potentially even open up a little bit earlier, like you mentioned, especially for guys on the alternate tires. If you want to get off those a little bit sooner, that becomes an option for you as well. The question is, for RC, who is on that strategy, who is on the alternate tires, does he have just one more stop to make in this race, or is he going to be forced to make 2 more stops? Right now, the pace he's running, I don't know if he's been saving enough fuel to do so, but remember, Van de Sande Also, I mean, he used push to pass 3 times. He was pushing to regain his track position. He was one of the guys who went the furthest. He went 29 laps on that first run. So right now, this traffic could be helping RC just a little bit, helps him slow it down through these corners and gets a little bit of slipstream support on some straightaways. They should get out of his way, but yeah, I mean, I don't know right now. It's entirely dependent on the lap that the 75 car pits. That's going to tell us how this race is going to shake out.
Yeah, and I think what happens here is what also could determine when you come in is how far is your gap for the person in front or behind you, because you kind of want that clean entry, you want that clean exit when you're making your in and out laps.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want anybody kind of getting involved there or slowing you down. You're trying to maximize, every lap that you have here, and so that's part of it. Those in and out laps are so crucial for a lot of drivers. They're not too close to one another on the racetrack. There's a couple of close battles, and the closest one we have here is this battle for third position. It's Frankenfield, Fortner, and Pinheiro. We'll follow this one along, as we'll also pay attention to that lead battle. But yeah, right now, pretty good battle going on here for the final podium position.
Yeah, and I mean, we just know how tight it is coming off of that last turn right here. As you can see, if you're stacked up, you got to let that guy know behind you that you're coming into the pits, and we're going to see that over here in the next 3 to 4 laps, I do believe.
Yeah, so update on when these guys pitted. Both Fortner and Frankenfield pitted lap 26. Pinheiro was the guy who made it furthest on that first run, lap 30. Yeah, we'll see what that strategy looks like. Do Fortner and Frankenfield stay together out on the racetrack, or stay together when they come down pit road, or do they try and split it up? Does Fortner try something to undercut Chad Frankenfield? Does Frankenfield get aggressive on defense and try to make sure he covers off that car of Justin Fortner? There's a lot of potential options here in terms of strategy. That's one of the nicest things about road course racing, is it kind of opens up that strategy, I feel, a lot for these drivers, because your pit windows feel that much wider.
Yeah, and you really want to be at a point where you're not, depending on how the strategy falls, the least amount of laps it takes for you to get to the finish after pitting is probably what you're looking for. At least that's what I would do, and it could work out either way. But I don't want my tires to be falling off, and I'm still 2, 3 to 4 laps away, and I'm worried about fuel, and I have to go into fuel savings mode. So maybe you stretch this one out as long as you possibly can. And some guys could possibly, maybe this is their last stop. We will see, as we are 35 laps away from the finish of this one. And we saw in that first stint, I believe 2 drivers went 30-plus laps, if not mistaken.
Yeah, no, 30 laps is absolutely possible, and Pinheiro and Van de Sant both showed that you can get there while also running very competitive pace. So, yeah, you make it, you stretch this particular stint that little extra, and that does make a difference. But it requires you to run this stint to to run an extra 5 laps on this particular stint. For the guys like Frankenfield, Fortner, that's not as difficult. You're on those primary tires. Potentially, they're slower in general. You're using less fuel there. For RC Anderson, that's where it gets a little bit concerning as that gap continues to shrink. Update on the battle for the lead, just 5.5 seconds now between Van de Sant and Enerson.
And it looks like Pinheiro right here is ready to pounce to make a couple moves. He's caught that. Looks like the 3rd and 4th place drivers. So we'll see if our pole sitter can make some more moves here.
Yeah, with that, we'll ride for a little bit here on board with Adriano Pinheiro, your pole sitter tonight. And from myself and Tony, we'll be back with you in just a brief moment. All right, back with you guys here. Been following Adriano Pinheiro as he's chasing down Justin Fortner, Chad Frankenfield on the racetrack. Pit road has not opened up quite yet. It has, though, for Victor Del Porto. So he's bringing that car down, lap 53. That's going to be tough, I think, to make it to the end here. I think you've got to be 55 minimum. He's going to have to run some serious fuel saving, and he has to run the alternate tires here for this final strategy, I believe. Are those alternates on that car? It's showing alternates on timing and scoring here. So, yeah, Del Porto might be forced to make another stop here. But here we go. Frankenfield, Fortner, both on pit road. This is, again, a little bit on the earlier side. What do you think there, Tony? Are they going to be able to make it to lap 85 with this the strategy of pitting right in here now? They do have to run the alternate tires.
Yeah, without a yellow, which we haven't had yet, I don't see it. That's 32 laps. We saw, I think, 30th the most. Now we'll see who can stretch it the furthest here in this second stint, but that's going to be extremely tough. But, you know, if you don't use up a lot of your push to pass, as R.C. Anderson comes down pit road, and you can maybe save, but that's pretty much rolling the dice and hoping for double sixes. It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, especially at these road courses, no automatic cautions by iRacing, so there has to be a massive block typically in that final hairpin that would cause the situation to bring out a caution. So RC does get off the alternate tires, does he? It looks like he's actually stayed on the alternate tires for his final or for his next run. Whether this is going to take him to the end of the race, I'd be surprised if it does so. So he might be going for kind of a quickie here, get the pace out of those alternate tires, grab the splash of gas, and then run the rest of this race, or maybe just run the rest of this race on alternates because you don't have to worry about them wearing down too much. But for Van de Sant, who's on the alternates right now, he's gotten those out of the way. He can switch to the primaries technically when he comes down pit road and be in a perfectly good situation. Though, again, his pace has been exceptional. 109.5 that last time around, 109.5 again as he crosses the line this time by. I mean, that's as good as it gets there late in the run on those red sidewall tires.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the lap times have fallen off like you would think that they would here late in the stint when those tires are pretty much all but gone. But still have our leader, Van de Sant, to still come into pit road. Looks like everybody else pretty much in the top 10 needs to as well, except for Chad Frankenfield, Justin Fortner, and R.C. Anderson.
Yeah, I'm just looking here right now. It looks like there's blacks on that car of R.C. Anderson. For some reason, our timing and scoring has it that they're driving out on alternates. Unfortunately, I couldn't tell you if that's a glitch in on our iRacing screen that it's not showing the alternates, or on timing and scoring that it's not showing that he's on the primary. So a little bit of unknown there for us in terms of what tires R.C. Anderson's actually on. I tend to trust what we're seeing on the sim more so than the timing and scoring, and in that sense, I'm going to say he is on the primary tires, so he could maybe make it to the end of this race. At least with the tires, they should be giving him enough life to make it there, and maybe there's enough. They're slower enough that he's not using as much fuel as he would be maybe with the stickier alternates.
Yeah, we know that in third right there, Pinheiro is going to have to come in for a stop as well. So, I think R.C. Anderson is really in a catbird seat right here to snag the win. But again, you wouldn't expect a mistake out of a professional like R.C., but I guess you never know. But we've got a lot of strategy to be played out here, and I don't think those guys that are going to try to stretch it are going to be able to make it. But I've been wrong before.
Absolutely, and as we're watching there, yeah, that's showing Pinheiro on all. Yeah, so I think our timing and scoring is all up and all up and confused right now here, not giving us very accurate information. So we're gonna have to look closely at the actual sidewalls of those cars to figure out what tires they're on and what strategy they're running here, because yeah, that's already two of the cars in the top three there don't seem to be giving the correct information in terms of what tires they are on in this race. As RC puts in a personal best lap time that last time by, he's 30 seconds right now behind Alexander Van de Sant, and Van de Sant, he basically just needs to, I mean, he's good to go to come down pit road now if he wants to. He's in a situation, I think, where he's going to safely make it to the end of the race here on just one more stop.
Yeah, and with a 33-second gap at this point, RC's on fresher tires. He's probably running a little bit quicker than you on the lap times. So you immediately want to bring this thing in because it just seems like the further you stay out and the more you stay out on this stint, the shorter that gap will become with Enerson on a little bit of a faster, fresher tire right now.
So through goes Van de Sant for another lap here. 58 would be if he was running 29.29. So potentially this next time by is when the 97 car visits pit road. Adriano Pinheiro, the guy who did 30 laps on that first run, does he make it all the way to lap 60 this time by? And if so, what does his run to the end look like? It should be much more doable in terms of getting those final 25 laps out of the race car. But lap 58 of 85, again, if you haven't made your final your final stop yet, you are in the clear to make it. But we are just on the edge of that window, I think, of being able to make it to the end of this race. I think for RC Enerson, who pitted lap 53, it's going to be a bit of a stretch. Getting that's going to be 32 laps there that need to be complete. On one tank of fuel. He's definitely got to be in fuel save mode for the rest of this race.
Yeah, and he's going to have to watch out for the guys behind him, too. You don't have a big enough gap where you can come in for a splash and go. So not sure why RC came a little bit earlier there, but we'll see if that ends up being the downfall of his race here this afternoon.
So Van de Sant does finally come down pit road. Here comes the 97, just as we might have speculated there at the end of lap 58, start of lap 59. Should mean that RC Enerson slots on by and becomes the race leader once again. But the question is, how close are these guys going to be coming off of pit strategy? Adriano Pinheiro stays out for another lap. But remember, RC Enerson in front of him. I mean, this could potentially be the battle right here for second place on the racetrack between RC Enerson and Adriano Pinheiro, because Pinheiro has one more stop to make, and we speculate right now that RC Enerson will also have one more stop to make as Van de Sant comes out here. Few seconds behind these guys, but overall much closer to, again, leader RC Enerson than he was before pit cycles. Was 5.5 seconds or so when everybody was coming down pit road. Currently sits at 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, I don't see those top two, like you said, making it. I just, it's gonna be close. You're not gonna get a yellow, I don't think. Would be shocked, honestly, if we did. So, we're looking right now at the catbird seat probably being Van de Sant.
Yeah, I think he is right now, and I think he has been since he extended that first stint. That was such a great call there by Van de Sant to do that, and actually decides to go back onto those red sidewall alternate tires. Adriano Pinheiro does finally come down pit road, so another 30-lap stint there, 26 laps to go when he comes through. He could be the guy in position to grab third spot, because remember, Porcelli, I think, is absolutely going to have to come down pit road. He pitted last on lap number 37.
And interesting to see, too, these guys' lap times, as you just mentioned, are they saving fuel? And how much of that push to pass do you really want to use, knowing how much fuel that's going to burn up?
So Pinheiro does exit back out onto the racetrack. Should be in front of Chad Frankenfield. It is. So he has clean air right now. 30 seconds to David Porcelli, so it's not going to be any situation where he gets there on the racetrack, but we know 100% Porcelli's coming back down pit road. And right now for Pinheiro, he's just working on putting in some quick lap times right here, because if RC comes back down pit road, has to pit in that 75 car, that's going to be the fight right there for second position. But right now, if you're Van de Sant, you talked about it. Championship rival right now is out of the picture, out of this race. RC Enerson, we suspect, is going to have to pit again. if you're Van de Sant right now, you can kind of chill. But he's continuing to push. He's continuing to close that gap. That last lap, 1.5 seconds faster than RC Anderson.
Yeah, and it's certainly a call. I'm assuming he knows that the guy that he is battling for in the championship currently is not in the race. So interested to see how hard he pushes here, knowing that there's a pretty good chance, I think, that RC will end up having to make that final pit stop. And when does RC do that? Do you do that? Do you stretch it and go as long as you can and gamble to the end, or do you come in early enough to where you still leave yourself some time to put down some big time laps and hopefully try to gain some more spots?
Yeah, I think for RC, it's a tough call. Unless he's sure that he can make it. If you don't know you can make it, I'd kind of say man, that is a very tricky one, especially if you consider maybe just coming in for a splash of gas and running those tires to the end. Do you want to do that earlier or not? But I mean, right now, I don't know if that's on his mind because he's got Alexander Van de Sant breathing down his neck. Whether or not it is a strategy race, even if it isn't, even if they're on the same strategy right now, it doesn't matter because Van de Sant, I think, is charging and could pass him on the racetrack before RC even has to take another pit stop.
Yeah, and I think if you're RC, how hard do you want to battle him, knowing that you're not going to be able to make it? Do you maybe let him go by and just say, all right, I've got second locked up. If I can just tuck in right behind him for 3 or 4 laps, keep pace, and maybe gain a lap of fuel back in the tank, and maybe that's a difference that he needs. But yeah, as you see here, Van der Zandt all over the back of RC Anderson, about to take over the race lead.
Yeah, it seems like it's only a matter of time right now with the pace that Van de Sant's been running. Again, that last time around, a second faster than RC Anderson. Again, running that time 0.6 of a second faster than RC Anderson. As David Porcelli does come down pit road, Van de Sant looks to the outside in turn 1. It's not going to be the move there. But right behind that 75 car of Anderson through the fountain curve, that 97 just looks so much faster on this racetrack right now, so much more comfortable with this racetrack right now. This is your defending champion, your current championship leader, Alexander Van de Sant, again, trying to put his name on this championship early on in the season. He's trying to do that here by not just outracing RC Anderson on the racetrack, but potentially outthinking RC Anderson via strategy. Adriano Pinheiro does get by David Porcelli, so he takes over the 3rd spot as Porcelli comes down for his final pit stop of the night. So right now it is Anderson, Van de Sant, Pinheiro, your top 3 runners. But that could very quickly shift here between Van de Sant and RC for the lead.
Yeah, and if you're RC, I mean, once like we talked about, how much do you want to hold him up? Because we know that Pinheiro has a fast car. He qualified on the pole. Yeah, it looks like he's a well ways away. But again, as we look for the lead here going into turn 1.
Oh, wow! Lapped car in the wall and gets in the way there as the move is being made between Van de Sant and RC Anderson. Both of them look like they get away unscathed, but how about that? That has got to be a hairy experience as you're fighting it out for the lead of this race.
Yeah, and he had the pass set up perfectly, and I'm not sure if he knew how swollen that lap car was, but that was almost chaos there for our leaders as we look at the Whiskey Cast replay.
So this is Nicholas Sudik. Just runs it deep into the corner and into the wall there. He's now going to, that's an unfortunate place to be. He's going to roll back out on the racetrack, notices he's on the racing line, tries to get out of the way, but that's already after Van de Sant had made that call to go down that left side. Very fortunate that didn't result in any major, didn't result in any major contact with the leaders.
Yeah, just very unfortunate there. Because going into 1, it's that quick left and then that right, and it's a blind turn. You can't really see when those guys are backed up, and when somebody stuffs into the wall like that, you just don't know.
So Van de Sant now 2 seconds clear of Enerson. Looks like he's in a pretty comfortable position again, strategy-wise and pace-wise. Meanwhile, further back on the racetrack, we talked about Adriano Pinheiro did take over that second place on the racetrack. So then that leaves the battle for fourth now between Frankenfield, Fortner, and Porcelli. Porcelli fell back pretty badly there with that extra stop that he had to take and with that strategy he was running. But right now, running P6, though, fresher tires than those 10-lap fresher tires than those guys in front of him. So he could potentially make some moves if he can close that 3-second gap to Fortner, and then another second as well beyond that to Chad Frankenfield.
As we go to 20 laps to go here, and man, I still don't know if somebody like RC is going to be able to make it. You would think not, but we will see here as we come down to the wire.
Yeah, 20 laps to go in this one then. And David Porcelli chasing people down, runs a personal best on that last lap. And already within 3 seconds of Justin Fortner. There's that 12 car just up the racetrack, chasing down Chad Frankenfield, who's just in front of him. This battle for fourth could become very interesting very quickly. Now just 8 cars left on the lead lap. Craig Forsyth, the last of those. Ooh, as a car holds up Porcelli off of the final hairpin. Gonna slow him down just a little bit. Who was that? Oh, as we have Sudik around again.
Oof. It's not been a good 2 to 3 laps here over the last couple of minutes there for that car.
Yeah, it absolutely hasn't. And I think it was Kanata who was just getting lapped there by Porcelli. And actually, it's even fewer cars on the lead lap. I was going to say Porcelli is the last car on the lead lap of this race. So the battle here going on between Fortner, Frankenfield, Porcelli, the battle for fourth on the racetrack. Fortner closing that gap to Frankenfield up front. Porcelli 2 seconds back from these guys, but 10-lap fresher tires means that we could have a very close fight going on here for fourth as the laps wind down.
Yeah, and we know Pinheiro's got a fast car. The gap continues to widen for the leader over RC Enerson. So if you're Enerson, you got a pretty big gap to go back to third place there. I'm sure that he is saving fuel, a little bit lighter on the pedal going in, a little bit lighter coming off. Maybe just kissing it a little bit less than what you would if you're running a full-out stint. So we'll see if he'll be able to make it. But I think, not that I'm very good at math, but I think he's going to be about 2 to 3 short.
Yeah, that is worth talking about. Lap 52 last came down pit road. Lap 53 for RC. Similar strategies between Enerson, Frankenfield, Fortner there. They're the ones most in danger here. Van de Sant, Pinheiro, and Porcelli are the 3 drivers we know can make it to the end. They should have no issues. They've gone more laps than they have from when they made their final pit stop. Enerson, Frankenfield, and Fortner are the ones who are being asked to extend further than we've seen anybody run fuel before in this race. How does that work out for them? Is it going to be possible to find that little bit of extra, fuel saving to turn down your engine just that little bit more? The lap times that they're running, again, they're very similar, and turning down the engine helps a little bit, but I've done analysis on these Indy cars, at least on ovals, and there's really not a massive benefit to turning down your engine in iRacing in terms of fuel saving. It all has to be done by the driver in terms of lift and coast and carrying the right amount of speed through the corners. Porcelli,
yeah,
though,
I'd be shocked if over the stint he's been able to save what he needs to save to get to the finish.
Absolutely, yeah. So for Porcelli, does he stay patient right here, or as he's already caught up to these guys, tries to get past them and kind of consolidate that fourth position, make sure there's no risk of losing it here, because he is right on the tail of Frankenfield and Fortner, and he is flying compared to these two. Last time around, 2 seconds faster than Justin Fortner, a whole second faster than Chad Frankenfield. Really, really impressive driving by David Porcelli, but those fresher tires doing the work for that car right now.
Yeah, and it's go time now, right? Like we're almost inside 15 laps to go, and you've got to pounce because you don't know who's going to make it, who's not going to make it in front of you. But you know that you want to be in position to where if somebody in front of you does dive down pit road or does run out of fuel, that you're in position to pounce and move on up.
Well, here we go down Shoreline Drive once again. A little bit more spread out this time by. None of these drivers on the button either. Oh, as Frankenfield gets a little bit loose, I think, heading into turn number 1. That's going to give Fortner a chance to set up into the fountain turn. But, of course, can't really make a move through that corner, so you can just kind of get closer and closer. But around the rest of this racetrack, realistically, not too many incredible overtaking opportunities. You know, I think at a point, maybe with the aero kit back in the day, this corner right here used to be an overtaking spot, but I think with this universal aero kit, it's hard to get the power down and really make a move to get to the inside there. So for the most part, your best overtaking opportunity around this racetrack is going to be into turn number 1. The rest of it, you're kind of spending time setting up, though maybe David Porcelli is about to prove me wrong here, heading down into the corner off the back straightaway to the inside. Not quite. They are going to go to the switchback. He's around the outside, but it's going to turn around to the inside for Porcelli. Can he get there? He does. Forces Fortner around the long way around, but Fortner's going to get the better run down Shoreline Drive and stay in front for right now, but they're both on the button.
Yeah, and you're just kind of setting them up there, and you wanted that inside lane to come around and get off the corner. So looks like he's going to make the pass. We'll see if he can pull away here. After he does it going into 1, it's going to get a little hairy.
Oh, man, he does. He gets close to the tire barrier there, but Porcelli not giving an inch. He's going to take over the 5th position and now sets his sights on Chad Frankenfield.
As we noticed, you know, that pass almost took up a half a lap just to set up and then complete. So keep that in mind in the late stretches of this race with guys trying to make moves. And it almost takes a full lap to set up a pass and then complete it.
Yeah, that's really what you've got to use the rest of this track for is finding the right options to set yourself up, find the right options to put yourself in position to make that move to turn 1. It really does seem to be the best possible option, but credit to Porcelli for really trying that around the outside through there. That's a very tricky corner to make a move in, but it does work for you. Frankenfield does have to dive to pit road, so that gives up 4th position right there, and that's what we suspected would need to happen. So if those guys, Frankenfield has to come down. He pitted lap 52. Fortner might be able to make it 1 or 2 more laps here. That's definitely not a necessity. That's just Frankenfield, I think, thinking strategy-wise. But then you have to think R.C. Anderson as well is going to have to give up that, give that up, pitting on lap 53.
Yeah, and I like the call there by Frankenfield. I would come in and spend these next 15 laps on a little bit fresher tires, putting down quicker laps as to where you're riding around out there right now and you could be unscathed, so just holding on for dear life. So if you know you're not going to make it, and once you realize that you can't make it, I think, a little skid there. I think you come in immediately whenever you know for sure that you're not going to be able to make it the distance.
Yeah, that's kind of your best bet, and maybe get some use out of fresh tires. Don't run those alternates down too long. But I mean, you've got to be thinking, if you're one of these drivers who might have thought, all right, it has to be a 3 stops race, who then just watched Alexander Van de Sande on that first stint just continue to extend. You've got to be thinking, man, what could have been? I think there was a lot of close racing and close pace between drivers, but only 2 of them were able to figure out the way to run that pace and run 1 less stop than the rest of the field. It was so close between that 2 and 3 stop strategy, but incredible that the 97 and 56 were able to make it work, and that's going to show off in terms of their results at the end of today.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm just excited to see what happens here over these last couple of laps, because R.C. Anderson for the first 50 to 53 laps of this race seemed to be the class of the field. We thought he came in a little bit earlier, but we'll see. Van der Sande now finds himself in the catbird seat. It's been a pretty good bounce back for Pinheiro, who, as we know, started on the pole, but going into turn 1, lap 1, lost control and fell back to, I believe, 15th. So a nice recovery for him. And then you go down the 7th there with Victor Del Porto gaining 11 spots and find himself comfortably inside of the top 10.
So then for Fortner, stays out on the racetrack for right now. Interesting to see what he does in response to Chad Frankenfield coming down. Does he think right now he's in a position where he can increase that gap over Frankenfield, or try and build that gap over Frankenfield. What kind of is the move here for Justin Fortner? Or is he still in that opinion of, hey, maybe I can actually make it to the end of this race? He was running a little bit slower than Frankenfield. Right now, lap times are definitely off the pace. And with a 34-second gap to Frankenfield, even if he runs a second, a lap slower than Chad every single lap, heck, if he runs 2 seconds, a lap slower every lap than Chad, he's still not going to get passed by that 15 car. So is there potentially the option or the ability for Fortner to make it to the end here? And that would be big for him to kind of take that spot over from the 15.
Yeah, and you look at, sometimes, okay, well, I'm a 7th, 8th place car, but I found myself in 3rd or 4th right now. Is it worth taking the risk to just try to snag that podium finish or that top 5 finish, knowing that maybe to start the day, you knew that you were going to have to play the strategy to move yourself forward?
So then following Fortner right now, kind of the way it's working, at least playing out in this race, is not too many close battles on the racetrack, but it's been an intriguing race all night long in terms of strategy and how drivers have been working that out and playing with different options. We were just talking there, 2-stop versus 3-stop and how that works for drivers. How about this battle going on here, though, on the racetrack for 7th position? Haven't talked too much about Craig Forsyth or Victor Del Porto tonight, but putting on a nice little run here for both of them inside the top 10. Very consistent for both of them. Del Porto, we think, is going to have to come down pit road one more time. Forsyth, though, is one of those drivers who I think made that 2-stop strategy work. Just didn't quite have the same pace of Van de Sant and Pinheiro to be up front running, but definitely gained some positions and gained some opportunities here by running that strategy, taking one less stop. He's inside the top 10 here, running strong.
A lot of lap cars here, as we see, and a lot of stacked up here as these tires start to fall off. I think we're going to start seeing pit road get a lot busier than what it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Forsyth gonna continue chasing down Del Porto, but can also probably afford to wait here. Again, we expect that car to come down pit road. And then in terms of drivers up top, R.C. Anderson, the next one expected to come down pit road to fight for or to have to come down and pit. And that should, in theory, give Pinheiro second position. We'll see if R.C. can recover that position back. It'll be close, but I don't think he'll have enough laps if he doesn't pit sooner. Porcelli, sorry.
I'm surprised R.C. hasn't already came in. Maybe he feels like he can make this somehow, and which is possible because my numbers could be wrong. But I would want to be running these final 10 laps on fresh tires and enough fuel to get me to the end, knowing that right now there's really no chance to make it to the end. I could be wrong, and he might be able to roll these dice and finish second, but I would think he's got to be coming in to get tires to at least try to be on the charge those final 10 laps.
Yeah, the only reason I'd see him staying out here is if he does, actually believe he can make it out. And it would be 32 laps, again, on that final set of tires. We have not seen any driver go beyond 30 laps here to finish this race. So unless he's found some Alexander Rossi-esque fuel-saving technique here, with 17 seconds to Pinheiro, he can really allow himself to slow down and save fuel. The problem is that still going to be enough? Either way, the best fuel saver in the world, you're still going to use quite a bit of fuel getting around this racetrack. An IndyCar engine simply just moves through a lot of gasoline, or excuse me, I suppose E85 there. But yeah, it's yeah, if he has to pit again, I don't get this call to stay out. If he doesn't have to pit again, then this has been an impressive run by R.C. Anderson. It explains why he had to lose that lead to Alexander Van de Sant. But to run that 2-stop, and kind of impromptu 2-stop when he wasn't, I think, originally planning to do so, to change up the strategy and still be able to do so, would be an impressive run there. But still 9 laps to go, and we're getting into the period now of big question marks for that car here for R.C. Anderson, whether or not he can make it. Justin Fortner does finally throw in the towel, and he has to hit pit road as well. So that's a likely position he'll have to give up to Chad Frankenfield, maybe. Frankenfield does come across the start-finish line. Fortner still on pit road. It's going to be Frankenfield by some ways. We'll see, though, with 8 laps, can Fortner get to the back of Chad Frankenfield, get by? It's going to be a big gap and a big ask, though, I think, for Fortner. About 7 seconds, I think, when he comes back onto the racetrack.
Yeah, and with RC, it's almost like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you come down pit road and you give yourself enough time to charge, you fall back to probably, 8th or 10th. Can you charge back up to a second place? Probably not. And if you're in second place, do you just say, I would rather finish second, or I would rather finish 15th or 20th and run out of fuel trying to preserve a podium finish? So it really just depends, inside of that cockpit, who you are and how much of the dice that we've been talking about do you want to roll, and would you rather go all in, and if you come up short, you come up short, or play a little bit more conservative and guarantee yourself a top 10 spot by coming into the pits and maybe running the last 7-8 laps as quick as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. But staying out again here as he ticks over 7 laps to go. Every lap he does that, of course, I become more and more sure that he's found a way to extend that this run out. Running 1:10.59 that last lap around. Again, he's in the 10s, which we kind of view as a kind of slower lap time around here. A fast lap is a mid to high 108s. Expect most people during their stint to be running in the 109s, but to be in the 110s tells me either he's struggling with grip or he's saving fuel and trying to do enough to make it to the end of this race. Just 4 cars left on the lead lap of this race. Alexander Van de Sant has lapped everybody up to Chad Frankenfield in 5th position. Porcelli, then, the last car on the lead lap here. We could be seeing a little bit of a repeat of last year's race when we had 3 cars finish on the lead lap. But that time we had just 6 cars finishing the race. This time, fortunately, we've got 16 cars still running on the racetrack.
And still running pretty good lap times. Obviously, RC has dropped off. I mean, I believe he was past about 11 or 12 laps ago, and it's now a 13-second gap. He's got a 15-second lead over Pinheiro right now, who is 3rd. I think if you pit, you'd probably find yourself maybe on the tail end of the lead lap. So rolling the dice, see if they can make it. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
It absolutely will, and as the laps continue to tick down, we want to use this as an opportunity to speak more about our fantastic premier partners here at the Elite Racing Leagues. Mark talked earlier about Powerhouse Recycling. Well, how about C2 Freight Resources, who are now the longest-running premier sponsor here of the Elite Racing Leagues, or at least current one. And C2 Freight Resources, well, they offer complete freight management services and are ready to meet your needs today as well as your changing needs in the future. With thousands of qualified carriers in their database, they're capable of handling shipping for every type of good, from perishable foods all the way to office equipment. Whatever you need to ship, they have access to the necessary equipment, including flatbeds, double drops, vans, tankers, refrigerated equipment, multi-axle heavy haulers, dump trucks, auto carriers, intermodal containers, and more. Check out C2 Freight Resources, proud premier sponsor here of the Elite Racing Leagues. And of course, Blue Egg Marketing, who've been on board now for 2 seasons. Well, they're just the marketing department there for small businesses. If you're a small business owner, Blue Egg Marketing is your absolute biggest fan. Whatever constraints are, they help catalyze creativity, and they'll help your business punch well above its weight class. So shout out to, of course, our fantastic premier sponsors here at the Elite Racing Leagues. Here tonight, just the Long Beach Grand Prix for the Mega Driver 86 IndyCar Series. Last time around, Justin Fortner, the fastest car on the racetrack, fastest lap all day at low 108, 108.15. Incredible lap time there. So potentially, light fuel load there, fresh tires, very, very quick from that 12 car. And that 7-second gap we talked about to Chad Frankenfield in front is now all the way down to 3 seconds for Fortner. He is flying in that 12 car with 4 laps to go, though. Will he have enough time to catch up to that Frankenfield car? It looks like he's catching up at about a second a lap, so he might just only have a 1 lap or so opportunity to make a move on that 15 car. But look out right now for Justin Fortner, because he is absolutely flying around this racetrack. Going to clock in another lap here. Let's take a look there. Again, a second and a bit faster than Chad Frankenfield. That gap is going to keep shrinking, and that 15 car is suddenly in the sight and views of that 12.
Yeah, and 4 laps to go here. Things are dropping off, right? Things are starting. The car's not where it was. 10, 15 laps to go on this stint. So you got to hang on for dear life here over these final 4.
So right now that gap already down to 2 seconds. Fortner to Frankenfield. Continue to follow this as it happens. Take a look on your screen. As he gets closer and closer, we should start to see Frankenfield's name pop up, and we should see him just kind of at the edge of your picture here, coming through the final corner. There's that 15 car. I think they've got one lapped car in between them, but in theory, that car should get out of the way when the time comes. 1.8 seconds. I actually don't know. Maybe that next car is in fact Frankenfield. Gonna have to take a look and see. It is. That is Frankenfield. They're chasing a lapped car, so that could potentially be slowing him down as well.
And R.C. Anderson right there as well. So final 3 laps here. We'll see. R.C. holding on for dear life.
He really is, and with 3 laps to go, you've got to imagine that RC is planning to make it all the way to the end of this race. I don't see him pitting with just a lap or so to go. And with 12 seconds to Adriano Pinheiro, again, he has that opportunity to just kind of cruise a little bit. He is actually the driver right in front, actually, of Frankenfield and Fortner, and here is that battle for 5th position between Chad Frankenfield, Justin Fortner. Fortner is within 1 second now of that 15 car. He's flying there, another 108.7, another second off of Chad Frankenfield. Fortner could be within striking distance as we're 2 laps to go this time by. I think that 12 car should be able to get it. We'll see, though, how can Chad defend against that number 12, Justin Fortner, who did take that extra stop, but just a little bit later in the race, and that's given him that 6-lap tire advantage, a significant pace advantage to really bring the fight here to Frankenfield.
And, this is, you start to defend, you start to get a little impatient, and then you start to make these, we talked about it, it takes almost a full lap, certainly a half lap to set up one of these passes, because there isn't that great of a passing zone at the track. So we'll see if we can set them up here to come off on the main straightaway and take that position over.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take a look right now. Fortner all over the back of Chad Frankenfield's gearbox there, trying to see if he can get into the slipstream. Not on the button this time by, but setting himself up to likely get onto the button next time as the white flag waves as the Whiskey Cast last lap here for Alexander Van de Sant. What a race he's put together despite that massive mistake there early on in the event. Meanwhile, down this front straightaway, this is what the fight's going to look like. Fortner on the button. Frankenfield can't be, or isn't at least, doesn't seem to be defending at least, not with push to pass. And so for Fortner, Frankenfield's going to force him to go the long way around. But is he going to hold on? Frankenfield has the preferred line into 1. He's going to hold on there. Fortner, did he hit the wall? It looked like he did.
It was close. He's continuing on, though, still in pursuit here.
Yeah, but did he lose his final opportunity? It's the last lap of the race. Did Frankenfield hold on, or does Fortner have another opportunity coming? He needs to regather and quickly find another chance, another opportunity to get by Chad Frankenfield. Meanwhile, up front, it is Alexander Van de Sant heading into the final couple of corners. What an incredible drive he's had tonight in terms of putting together this race. Spun it around in turn number 1, but then came back with an absolute vengeance. One of the few drivers to put together a 2-stop strategy. Alexander Van de Sant's going to grab his second win of the season. What an incredible job, and what an incredible job working on his title defense. Meanwhile, here's the battle for 5th as it happens. R.C. Anderson's going to come across the line for 2nd place. Fortner looking for any chance he can. Frankenfield parks the bus on the hairpin, and he's going to grab 5th place. Pinheiro should also be just behind them. P3 for Adriano Pinheiro, who also had that mistake. Your pole sitter tonight, what could have been for Pinheiro. He ran that same strategy as Van de Sant, also made that mistake, but a little bit more of an effect, I think, in terms of how he went off in turn number 1. Man, what a race that was, Tony.
Yeah, down towards the finish. Again, another strategy play, not knowing exactly who had enough fuel, and kudos to these guys on the 2 stops. It worked out for R.C. Anderson, who comes up 2nd, who had one of the best one of the best cars earlier, and here we get a little bit of a burnout for the second time this year for Van der Sant, picking up another victory.
Yeah, incredible. Incredible drive, incredible start to the season here, and of course maximizing the points that you're getting. When your main title rival is out of the race. So huge result there for Van der Sant to put that all together.
Big win and a big day in the points for him as well.
Let's see if we can get the results there. There they are. Alexander Van der Sant, your race winner. R.C. Anderson, Adriana Pinheiro, your top three. We're going to try and see if we can get a chance to talk to all of our top three finishers here tonight. Incredible job there. You see Porcelli, the only other driver to finish on the lead lap there, 57 seconds back from leader Alexander Van der Sant, but Porcelli was the first of the drivers on that three-stop strategy. The top three all making it on two stops.
And that seems to be what we weren't sure. We weren't sure, especially after that first stint, if these guys could do it on two stops. Van der Sant, Pinheiro went pretty deep on that first one, and then a nice run there to end it out for R.C. Anderson, who brings home the car in second spot.
Absolutely. We'll wait for our race winner, but in the meantime, we'll bring in R.C. Anderson. R.C., man, pretty crazy race there. Looked like you had it under control, but I've got to ask, when you saw Van der Sant go that little bit extra longer, is that when you realized you were doing the two-stop, or did you know all along you'd be running a two-stop race here at Long Beach?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really do too much practice, so I didn't know exactly how long a fuel run would be. Once he made the mistake and I was out front, I was kind of just cruising, but then I found myself, I was in map 1, and I'm not really trying to save fuel. And I saw how far down the fuel went, and I saw the second place follow me, but I saw them keep going. And I was like, oh, man. And then I was like, I tallied it up in my head. I did 24 laps or 25 laps. I was like, I'm going to have to do an extra stop. If they can make it 30, they're good. So, I really had to stretch it there. I think I ran out of fuel right there at the line.
Yeah. Was there any point there in that last stint where you maybe thought, all right, I'm going to go for second, and this is the bet I've made? Or did you have any considerations of bringing it in and ending this race on fresher tires?
I think I would have had a chance. I think I would have made it harder for myself. It's really tough to pass here. So if I pitted and caught myself behind a couple people that were for position, I feel like I'd have more risk there rather than just trying to save fuel with the big gap I had behind me. So I just threw it in map 5. I'm actually really not sure which map on iRacing is the most fuel, but it seemed to give me the best fuel number, and I just kept rocking with that. And I was just trying to see the ticker save for the good, and I was just balancing right on the edge there. I don't know how many laps they did at the end. I think I made it 31 laps on fuel or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's still an impressive run there. I think that officially was the longest run on a single tank of fuel that anyone actually pulled off tonight. So you definitely had it in you to run that two-stop strategy and run that extra strategy there. It is interesting though. You mentioned you didn't practice, but it looked like a lot of the field was on that three-stop strategy, that same initial mindset there. So interesting to see though that two-stop definitely was the move with the top three finishers getting that. But wanted to give you a chance to make some shout-outs here on the air, and incredible race there. Had a dominant-looking car, but man, it was going to be tough to compete with that 97.
Yeah, if I was just converted to that three-stopper and realized it a little sooner, I think we'd have had a much better shot, been able to race him for the end. But yeah, I would like to thank Lucas Osko Racing, Elite Racing Leagues, you guys up here in the booth. I love doing these. I always like to come back. I try to make as many as I can as long as I'm not out of town. Makes it hard to run for a championship, but I like to come in and race. These guys are really good. But yeah, thanks.
All right, R.C. Anderson, then P2 finisher here tonight at Long Beach. Strong run for the IndyCar driver there. And coming in off back-to-back victories, we're going to bring in Alexander Van der Sant, your current championship leader. Alex, you came into tonight tied for the championship lead with Nate Sefker. You come out with I would assume, a pretty substantial lead. We don't know the numbers exactly yet as they haven't been calculated, but did you know that Nate did not finish the race tonight, and did that change how you approached any of how this race played out?
I didn't see when he disconnected, but I hadn't seen him on track for a while, so I knew like at some point he had an issue. I know something weird happened on the start, so I think he took a bit of damage maybe, but like even before green, so that's disappointing. But yeah, just wanted to have a clean race, see if I can make that strategy work. I don't know how I got away with that spin on like lap 10 or around there, but yeah, even was just able to overcome that. So really happy with how I drove after that.
Yeah, and how patient did you need to be, knowing that you've got a fast car, but you kind of put yourself a little bit behind the eight ball, and then working that fuel strategy to your advantage the rest of the way?
Yeah, when you're fuel saving, yeah, like you said, it's all about patience. So it's hard to judge because like that put me in a spot like behind like 3 or 4 cars that I know I'm faster than, but like how much fuel can I afford to burn to like get around them and make that pass? And fortunately, I had saved enough early on in that first stint that I could afford to spend a little more and then make up for it later still. So yeah, it just that's one of my favorite ways to drive, fuel saving. I don't know why more people didn't go for it, but I enjoy it. I tend to go. I'm a lot more smooth. Tires are always better at the end, and I'm not. I don't lose too much time with that as a result.
Well, Alex, you had a bit of a scare earlier on in the race there, spinning it around in turn one. At that point, did you still believe, hey, there's a long way to go in this race, I can still win this, or was it more of, you felt like it was more of a damage control type race after that?
I assumed that it was going to be damage control because I didn't know what RC and David were going to do in terms of strategy. Like, were they on a fuel safe strat as well? Because I'd been faster than RC those first few laps, but I didn't know what tire he was on, and so like it could have been like we were both fuel saving, but I had a faster tire or something, so he could. So I was able to pull away, but yeah, once they pit, I knew like, okay, as long as I keep it clean the rest of the race, like I'm golden. I shouldn't have any other issues.
Awesome,
Well,
man.
congrats on the win, man. Another big points night for you. Another big win on the season. Enjoy it, and we'll see. We'll check in with you next time.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, Alexander Van de Sant, your race winner here tonight at Long Beach. Over the course of 85 laps, he puts it all together. An incredible run there, and yeah, I mean, to put together that run, have that incident there spinning around in turn one, probably worth about 10 to 15 seconds lost on the racetrack, and then to still find that and win the race by that same margin, about 16 seconds, puts a pretty impressive exclamation point on what he did tonight. And it's early days in this Mega Driver 86 IndyCar series, but it's hard to look past Van de Sant as a favorite to repeat for a championship here.
Yeah, and he's putting together the results on different types of tracks. Obviously, Fontana was a good race, and then Long Beach here, a total the first rotor street course circuit of the year, to be able to put it together. Stay patient, as he mentioned, which is hard to do. It's hard to do. You get spun around, you make a mistake on your own. There's nobody to blame but yourself. You got to get that thing turned around and pointed in the right direction. So, really excited to see what he can do the rest of the way, and we've got a couple awesome races coming up here over the next few weeks as well.
Absolutely, and with that, we're then gonna call it off for the rest of the night there. So enjoy the rest of your guys' Friday nights for you all watching at home. I've been Rishav Khosla, joined with Tony Donahue, and Mark Gillespie was with us earlier. Of course, we want to thank our premier sponsors here at the Elite Racing League: C2 Freight Resources, Blue Egg Marketing, and Powerhouse Recycling, as well as Mega Driver 86 on Twitter, who's been sponsoring this IndyCar series for I think the past 4 seasons. He's been running this one here. So yeah, incredible race tonight. Great to follow the strategies that went on the racetrack, and we can't wait to bring you guys the action again this time next week. With that, good night.